Okay. Okay. We're live. Boy, we are live. All right. I should probably do this. There we go. Hey, I told y'all I was gonna show up a day late. What's up, Josiah? How you doing, man? Not a super big week in comics again. I keep forgetting how like the summer months outside of like events are like usually pretty eh. But that's pretty good though, because that gives me time to go back and actually like buy older comics, which I may have missed out on. Namely, these bad boys. I finally get to read Hickman's Avengers. This is like... Okay, here's the thing with Hickman's Avengers. I like it so far. It's just like not really an Avengers book. As much as it is like just a Marvel Universe title. Because it has like the Fantastic Four in it. The Inhumans are like a big part of it. The Fantastic Four, or not Fantastic Four, it's really just Reed Richards. But Reed Richards is pretty big in this story. Doctor Doom plays a pretty big part. It's like a big cosmic soap opera as well. So there's a lot going on there. Like it's cool. It's just not really like an Avengers book. It is. Yeah, this is my first time reading Hickman's Avengers front to back. I've read the beginning and I've read the end of it, but I've never read like the whole thing. So yeah, I'm like finally jumping in, and I have the whole run now. So that's dope. One of the things that I noticed in reading this though, and I'm not the first person to point this out, but like it's okay. You see here, this is like volume 2 of Hickman's Avengers. On the cover is Spider-Man, but that's Doc Ock as Spider-Man. One of the frustrating things about the Marvel Universe when you go back and read old Marvel comics, well, I say it's frustrating, but it's really like just this is what Marvel Comics is, and I can't not appreciate that about it if I'm gonna read them. Marvel is not like DC in the sense that even when things change, there's still a sense of evergreenness. If that like that's like the best way I can put it. Like you go back and you read like Grant Morrison's Justice League. The 90s DC landscape is very different from the 80s DC landscape, which is very different from the 2000s DC landscape, which is very different from the 2010s, which is very different from now, the 2020s. But you still go back and you still see, like, there's still a sense of this is the iconic, like, Justice League. This is the iconic DC universe. With Marvel, it's like, okay, you're going to go back and you're going to read Hickman's Avengers, and you're going to see Spider-Man on the team, and it's Doc Ock Spider-Man, and Iron Man's wearing, like, he's wearing the original Sin armor, although it's not really the original Sin armor, it's like the Believe armor, but it's called the original Sin armor. I don't know why. But yeah, Hawkeye's not wearing his like normal costume. He's wearing his MCU Synergy costume. So it's just, I don't know. Marvel's just always in a state of motion, like everything's happening all at once. I missed the cue to making everything over all at once joke, but I don't know. But still, Marvel Comics is like never. They're never in a state of being evergreen because the soap opera requires you to keep the ball rolling. So there's always got to be something going on in one of these corners of the Marvel Universe. So that's like, I don't want to say like a trade-off, because I don't hate it. It's just like interesting. It's like when you go back and you read like 90s Avengers and like Eric Masterson is Thor, and you're like, why? What? What's going on here? Why? Or you go back and you look at some old like Spider-Man comics from the 90s, and then Doctor Strange shows up and he looks like hippie Doctor Strange with like long hair, and he's wearing like a trench coat, because trench coats are cool. You're like, what is going on? What is happening? But yeah, that's what I like about the Marvel Universe. You know, in a weird kind of way, in a weird irreverent kind of way. I like that there is no iconic version of the Marvel Universe. These characters are just forever in a state of change. And I like that, as opposed to like the DC Universe, which is like it's like a matte painting. It's a mural. There's like the icons at the top, and then you have everything else just kind of like sprinkling out of that. I think it's really interesting. How you doing, Adam? Yeah. What I found interesting in Hickman's Avengers run is it followed the definition of the word Avenger. Yes. Yeah. As opposed to the book following the standard of being an Avenger team member. Yeah, Hickman does a lot of really interesting stuff with the Avengers as a reactionary concept. But how, and I haven't finished it yet. I know all this like leads to something, but I think it's really interesting. Oh, what's up? Necronomulation. That's a dope name. That's a dope ass name. Yo, what's up? Welcome to the stream, man. But something I really like about Hickman's run on the Avengers is that he's really, I don't know, part of me feels like he's making a commentary on like the past 20 years of superhero comics, or I guess at the time past 15 years of superhero comics, where everything is just kind of riffing off of the Ultimates, where, you know, everything is like the military industrial complex, the Superman industrial complex, the superhero industrial complex, you know, the Necronomultron. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I'm stupid. But that's still a really cool name. Ultron is right. Humans are stupid. Nuke everything. But yeah, I'm really digging the Hickman book so far. I do feel like he's making a point about superheroes expanding their operations and becoming military installations. I feel like there's something he's saying with that, but I don't know. I hear that a lot of that comes to a head in Volume 4, and I am only on Volume 3 right now. I'm like at the beginning of the Infinity arc, or I guess that was an event. So far, really good. Also, kind of makes me a little like retroactively like kind of miffed that the Black Order in this is like really interesting and cool, and there's like, they feel like Warhammer villains. They feel like Chaos Demons, or they feel like the Demon Priests from like Doom Eternal, and in the movie they're just this generic posturing bad guy. I don't know. I don't want to go and hold him with the MCU, but like, just holy crap. Just the more comics I read in general, the more I'm like, oh, these movies all suck. Why watch movies at this point? But Josiah says, I wish they would have collected the Ultimates issues somewhere in those complete collections. That should be a thing, because I do have some of the Ultimate Avengers run, and that leads up to Secret Wars just about as much as all of this material leads up to Secret Wars, and just about as much as all of Hickman's run on the Fantastic Four and FF lead up to Secret Wars. I really hope Marvel puts that into collection one day. Oh, give me 1 second, guys. Okay, all right. Sorry, I have to answer phone. But oh yeah, I really think Hickman's run on Ultimate should be like recollected. That's like a really good run, and it kind of sucks that like Marvel just wants you to forget the Ultimate Universe existed, even though I really think the Ultimate Universe is just great. I think okay, and I've like made 100 videos on the Ultimate Universe, but like, goddamn, the Ultimate Universe is that is pure distilled Marvel right there. I feel like from the 90s, the mid 90s specifically, through now, actually up to now, Marvel's just kind of turned into like a baby DC. Sometimes you'll get something that jolts, like slaps you across the face and is like, no, the Marvel universe is not the DC universe. Like I think Hickman's Avengers is definitely that, especially when you get all the stuff where Reed Richards and T'Challa and Namor and Doctor Strange, like the Illuminati, when they're like, all right, let's just kill worlds. This is the thing we have to do. And it's like, oh wait, yeah, the Marvel universe is like a weird sci-fi nightmare universe where superheroes exist, but they're not really like heroes. I'm down with it. Yeah, like I like when something like that comes along, but for the most part, Marvel just kind of feels like a baby DC, and they have for a while. But I don't know. The Ultimate Universe brought back Marvel. That's the best way I can put it. It's the most Marvel had been in a long time, I feel. Even when like everything kind of fell apart, and then you got new stuff out of that in and of itself feels quintessential Marvel to me. What's up, John Ty? Because again, Marvel's not about like a status quo like DC is. Marvel's all about things happen, the dynamics change, and then the world responds to that change, and then you get new stuff out of that. So all right, Magneto's gonna flood Manhattan. What happens next? There's a war with the mutants and the humans. The mutants are all thrown in concentration camps. Mutants are outlawed. Spider-Man was seen saving people. So now, like, everyone loves Spider-Man. He's, like, the new Marvel Universe version of Superman. Captain America becomes the president at some point. I think, yeah. America's divided over the whole, like, mutant issue. Dude, I don't know, man. Like, I really like a lot of the post-Ultimatum, like, Marvel Universe stuff, or Ultimate Marvel Universe stuff. Ultimate Doomsday is but, you know, there's a really cool, there are really cool ideas in there that I think other writers really tapped into, specifically Jonathan Hickman, when he, like, took the Maker and made him the Maker. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I really would like a lot of that post Ultimate Universe material, especially like the Hickman stuff, to get collected better. Because there's a lot of really cool stuff in there that just, I think, gets ignored, and it really shouldn't be. Adam says, I guess they thought the title Illuminati wouldn't sell as much. That's true. I mean, clearly it didn't, because Bendis' Illuminati didn't sell for shit. And hello, Adam. How you doing? Necronomaltron says, I see what you're saying, but Silver Age DC is so wild compared to Marvel. That's true. Silver Age DC is kind of bizarre, in a way that I really appreciate. It's just pure, like, imagination. And that's, like, the big difference between Marvel and DC. Marvel is an ongoing D&D campaign with set rules for what you can and cannot do, and when you break those rules, you break immersion, I feel. DC is just what is on your mind. Okay, now go big with it. Put that idea on paper and blow up the paper. Put that paper into, like, a dimensional quantumifier, and then the paper is now a 5-dimensional cube. You've created a tesseract. Your idea is now beyond life. Like, I feel like that's what DC is, and that's when DC thrives, when DC is just big. Like, I was rereading The Dark Knight Returns Golden Child by Frank Miller and Rafael Grampa. Which I really love this, by the way. This is really fun. But you have a whole thing in here, spoilers for this 5-year-old comic. But there's a whole bit where Superman's children are fighting alongside, I almost called her Cassie Kane. No, it's not Cassie Kane. Jesus, not Cassie Kane. Carrie Kelly. And I love Carrie Kelly's Batsuit, by the way. It's really dope. But you have a whole scene where Carrie and, like, her band of Bat Antifa are just down and out for the count, because you find out that on the ground the Bat clan is fighting, like, Trumper Joker people, and then you find out that even above the Trumper Joker people, because they're being manipulated by the Joker, or much rather Donald Trump is manipulating them, and Donald Trump's being manipulated by the Joker. The Joker is being manipulated by Darkseid, and Darkseid is just this all-encompassing evil. So then Darkseid lands and just wipes out everything, and then you have Superman's children fight Darkseid, and then Superman's son uses, like, Hope Vision. Shit, yeah, it's literally Hope Vision. It's like this big radiant sweep of, like, blue that comes out of his eyes, and he just nukes Darkseid with it. And then Darkseid is, like, defeated. Everyone thinks Darkseid's dead, but then the sky starts to rain blood, and then Darkseid forms out of just negativity incarnate in the eye of a storm, and then he lands in the heart of the city for a rematch. Like, that is That is DC. I mean, say what you will about Frank Miller and your opinions on Frank Miller and all that. That's everyone's opinion is valid and subjective, and that's fine. But like, bro, DC is pure imagination. Marvel is like sci-fi horror. That's the big difference between those two, and that's what I really appreciate about them. I think the Silver Age of DC is like wondrously underappreciated, and I think a lot of that comes out of like a weird sense of like insecurity that DC has for that era, because that's when Marvel comes on the scene. Really the 60s is when Marvel comes on the scene and just like sweeps DC under the rug. DC turns into like Woody from the first Toy Story movie. Andy's like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a shame that DC is ashamed of their roots in just being pure imagination. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really cool when writers bring some of that stuff back, but I also feel like in the way sometimes it's brought back is not really in ways that are creative or, I don't know, moving the universe forward as much as they are just, we're gonna take I'm taking this block and I'm putting it back where it used to be. I like that old thing. It's going right back where it was. And it's like, okay, but this doesn't actually, like, you told like a 40-issue story to just bring back old stuff instead of do something new and interesting. And that's like the problem that DC's in right now. And it has been for like the past like 30 or 40 years. But I don't know. Again, in the same way that we were talking about, like how every once in a while I feel like Marvel is largely like a they've devolved into DC Junior. Despite that, there is a story that comes out that just slaps you across the face and it's like, no, we're not DC Junior, we're Marvel. I feel like every once in a while, DC will come out with something and it's like, no, we're not ashamed of our wow, tongue twister. But it's like, no, we're not ashamed of our Silver Age roots. We're DC. And you get something really special. But yeah, I don't know. I really like when DC is not ashamed of some of their crazy Silver Age roots. What's up, Supreme? What's up? Hey, Mystical Green Beanie. Been reading James Robinson's Starman. Oh, god damn it! I want to join you in the sun, brother, but I just have no room on my shelf for it. But I'll get there. But it says I wanted to read something from DC that is not Batman, but yeah, Starman is Robinson's masterpiece, a hero that actually gets an ending. And I feel like a lot of characters need that too. I do like when characters get proper endings. I think that's like kind of the whole point of storytelling. You have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an ending. And then you get new stories out of that. I think that's largely what like a lot of people are kind of craving from a lot of modern comics. Endings to like the status quo. But then you build something new out of that. I think that's potentially really cool. The problem is I think we're in such an Oedipal time where the only definition for building something new is to tear down what was old instead of building on top of it and using what was old as like a foundation. And that's like the real problem with like legacy, with like a lot of modern comics. There's no proper legacy because there's no proper way of like honoring what came before in a lot of these cases. the Black Order was like the Sith in the comics. Yeah. They're straight up like they're straight up dark force users. Um, God, dude, this book is so good. It kind of sucks. I just like ignored it at the time because I was like, I'm not a big Avengers guy and I don't care about Thanos. Which I still kind of don't. I feel like Thanos is. I feel like Thanos kind of has an ending, but it's cool, so I don't care. I don't care. It's dope. Supreme says, you complain about Marvel being a baby DC. To me, modern DC feels like baby Marvel. That's still my grudge against Identity Crisis and New 52. I understand that, and I definitely see where you're coming from. I think that DC has definitely, in fact, DC definitely like has a period of being baby Marvel, and I think that starts in the 80s. I think that starts way before Dan DiDio reboots the DC universe in New 52. I think it goes way beyond, or like way before the reaches of Identity Crisis. I think DC trying to be Marvel Jr. starts with the post-Crisis rebooted universe, like with like John Byrne's run on Superman, and the Batman stories become a little darker. They're already kind of getting dark in the 70s, but darker. And you started getting more like Justice League International is like a comedy version of like the Avengers. Like it's the soap opera, and it's like, oh, this is not DC. What are you doing? I don't like this. You just turned the Justice League into like the Great Lakes Avengers. Get the fuck out of here. But yeah, like the post-crisis is definitely like DC turning themselves into like Marvel Jr. Which is just insane to me because like a decade later, Marvel will kind of like start turning into like DC Jr. where they go too big with some things, I feel. So it's just kind of weird. I feel like DC loses their way and then Marvel kind of like follows, but like in the opposite sense. It's so weird. But John Ty says the recent stuff I've read was Ryan North's Fantastic Four number 11. Oh, sweet. Kelly Thompson's Birds of Prey number 1. The art was really good in that one. I can say that. Silk City Boy. Great to see Kelly Thompson finally writing for DC. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Kelly Thompson guy, I'll be honest. I read the Birds of Prey number 1, and I just wasn't. The art was really cool. I like the art a lot. It's a very pretty looking book, but if you liked it, that's dope. Let me know what you thought was really interesting about it. I will say I thought it was really cool that they brought back Black Canary's sister, and they kept the age consistent because she was the same age as Damian Wayne. She was introduced in like the mid 2000s, and she's like 16 now, which tracks because Damian's like 16. So that's really cool. 1610 Man says Dan DiDio's New 52 reboot and Joe Quesada's Marvel New 42 reboot. Yeah, Marvel and DC are like in a weird. They're just in weird spaces where I feel like they're just mirroring the other in a bizarre way. I don't know. Interesting. 1610 Man says beginning, middle, and end trilogies. It set up for a new trilogy with legacy characters. So the Star Wars method. It's good, Arcus. I don't know, Beanie. I think you're projecting a bit with the whole DC being pure imagination. If you're a fan of Grant Morrison's all about Silver Age. Yeah, but like reading a lot of the Silver Age stuff, it's literally just what's on your mind. What are you thinking about? Want to see Batman as a caveman? Well, you're gonna. I don't care if you said yes or no, but you're gonna get it. Or like this issue, Batman has to build himself a tank. I don't know, just like craziness. There's a whole thing where like there's a time traveler who shows up and he blackmails Batman, Robin, and Superman into committing crimes so that he can have the accurate historical data to write his own book in the future. There are no rules in the DC universe. It's just whatever you want to see happen. So yeah, I don't know. I do think Grant Morrison's definitely onto something with the whole DC's pure imagination thing. I mean, I am a Grant Morrison fanboy, so am I being colored by that? 199%. Yeah, I am being colored by that, but I don't think he's wrong. Or they're wrong. 1610 Man says Barry Allen versus Wally West, dawn of a broken fan base. It's so weird because like you read the letters pages in some of those old Flash books from like the 90s, and it's people going like, "Oh, this Wally West guy, he's kind of sucks." Even though Wally's been in the book for like Wally's been like a Flash mainstay character for like 30 years at that point. No, 40 years at that point. But I don't know. People just didn't like Wally as the Flash, but it took a generation, like literally a generation, like 15 years of Wally being the Flash, for him to become like a mainstay for a bunch of kids who just grew up with Wally as the Flash to go like, no, he's the Flash. He's the Flash. It's what I think Miles Morales in comics could have been if the Ultimate Universe didn't blow up. I feel like Miles legitimately could have been seen as the Ultimate Spider-Man if Marvel didn't throw him in the main 616 universe, and now he's just a spider person. It's what I feel like. I feel like Tim Drake could have the same thing as Red Robin. If DC just stuck with it. And like actually told interesting stories with him. That's the other trade-off. It's more than like a stubborn stick-to-itiveness. You have to like actually tell good stories with these characters. And a part of telling good stories with those characters isn't just telling stories where you're justifying that character's existence as the new guy. You can't just do that. Like, I feel like that's like the big problem with a lot of contemporary legacy heroes. And I definitely had that after reading the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle series. I feel like one of the problems with legacy heroes right now is that 90% of the stories is just them trying to validate their existence as the new guy, whereas before it was just, here's the new guy, and we're just telling stories. We're just building their mythos, their legacy, and every once in a while there will be like someone who shows up and says, you're not the real blah blah blah, and then they're like, actually, fuck you, I am. And then that's the story arc for that month, and then you move on. You just keep telling stories that build up their legacy and their mythos. So I don't know, man. I really kind of feel like that's just one of the big problems with like legacy heroes in general right now. No one really wants to. Everyone's like so interested in like trying to justify them as opposed to like actually telling interesting stories with them, which ironically justifies them. um, uh, Post-crisis DC universe. Welcome to Marvel Junior. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird. I'm stuck in a weird in between there because there's a lot of stuff in the post-crisis universe that I think works and like legitimately did kind of fix the DC universe. And there's a lot of places where I think it just broke it, and it hasn't gotten better, and it's just been broken ever since. And we've just been trying to fix it continuously. We've been in a cycle of trying to fix it for like 35 years. All the stuff with like John Byrne aside, like John Byrne as a person and like what he stands for, his ideology and whatnot. Whatever. I still think that like his Superman kind of fixed Superman. It brought the character back to his roots of fighting like corrupt industrialists and taking on war profiteers, but like, war profiteering is slightly different in the 80s than it is or it was in the 40s. So it's more so like Superman versus the military industrial complex. So I think John Byrne like legitimately kind of fixed Superman in that regard. He also brought the character back to his like sci-fi roots in a really interesting way. So I don't know. I really like that, but there is something to be said about John Byrne kind of like taking the wonder out of Superman, and I do understand that. I feel that, but I don't know. Then you have other stuff like you have the whole thing with like Batman. I think Batman's kind of post-crisis history is weird, because like some stuff happened, but some stuff didn't. I think Grant Morrison gives a pretty good fix for it in their run, but then New 52 happens, and then it's just like, alright, so just none of this makes sense anymore, does it? But yeah, the DC universe just kind of, I feel like the DC universe just kind of like has a proper ending after Crisis, and then you go from Crisis to Kingdom Come, which I still don't like, but it's still like, I still consider Kingdom Come like a legitimate ending for the DC universe. Despite personally not being, it's not really my thing, but it is an ending, and I appreciate it for that. John Ty says, how would you handle the all-new, all-different era of Marvel with giving endings to the old Marvel characters and creating new legacy heroes? Well, first of all, I wouldn't have done it all at once. That's the big thing that I think kind of killed all-new, all-different Marvel. Change within the Marvel Universe is good, because change is not just like a necessity. It's what the universe is built on. But I would have done like all these things all at once, and I would honestly would have handled them just better. The whole thing where, okay, like taking Riri Williams for example, the whole thing where she ends up working with Tony Stark's mom, who's like a pop singer, and she's like hanging out with Mary Jane Watson in Stark Tower. No, I would have done that. If you're gonna introduce a new Iron Man after like Carol Danvers, Injustice, Gods Among Us, Joker hand fisting Superman through the Joker's spine, if you're gonna do that, I don't know. Why did I phrase it like that? But if you're gonna like have the whole thing where like Carol impales Tony and just kills him, alright. Cut to Riri Williams. keep the whole origin where she's a brilliant MIT student working, um, and like doing people's homework, uh, and she's like extorting people. She's like a little. She's like that classic Marvel like unsympathetic little shit. Like do that. Um, but then you like really build off the fact that like okay, this is a kid who like built in Iron Man armor. Um, okay, what do they do? Like what is this teenage girl's struggle? Like what is Riri Williams like pathos? What are her stories? Who are her antagonists? Instead of like jumping her in like the deep end where she's like, you know, just filling in Tony's spot. Like no, give her like a whole new, give the Iron Man book a whole new dynamic, man. You know, I don't know. I just would have done something a little different. I don't remember. I don't remember half of these all new, all different Marvel characters. I think Miss Marvel's really good. I think Miss Marvel's actually kind of the perfect example of like how to do like a new legacy hero. Because I was taking like the Miss Marvel like moniker, and instead of it being like a big cosmic thing, it was like a street level. It was a Spider-Man book. It was essentially like a Spider-Man book at that point. And I think that's what you do when you like bring in new heroes with new legacies, that aren't tied to like a pre-established lineage. Sort of like the Flash. Like the Flash, I think, is one of those characters you can get away with them kind of fighting the same villains, as like Barry Allen and even Jay Garrick, because like the Flash is all about like that. It is that family, that is like that dynasty. But when you have characters that aren't a part of a dynasty, you really should like make some of those you should make the stories like different. There should be an effort to make the stories different. You should make them all new and all different. I think Miss Marvel did a really good job of doing that. I feel like Amadeus Cho as the Hulk. I'm trying to remember what those stories were like. Even there's like a whole thing where he's on the beach. That's pretty dumb. I don't know. See, I don't know. That's a tough one. I have to think on that more. Ask me again next week. I'll definitely have thought about this in like the shower every day, like way longer than I really should have. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, ask me again next time. I'll have an answer for you. Supreme says Dan DiDio loved Ultimate Marvel. He really did. That explains some of the more divisive choices from 2003 onwards in DC. Yeah, I mean, I feel you. I do like that. And this is where I'm a hypocrite. I like a lot of some of the Dan DiDio choices. Despite not liking his tenure at DC, especially when he became editor-in-chief. I like Identity Crisis. I don't know. I know that might go against a lot of what I was saying earlier with the DC universe, but I thought it was interesting. I don't know. I thought it was a cool story. I thought it was well told, and I thought it was well drawn. So, and I liked it for that. The Silver Age formula, entirely self-contained storylines with no significant arc continuity at all. Yeah, they're all Family Guy episodes. Literally, that's what like DC Comics was for like a huge stretch of time. It was just they were the equivalent of like Family Guy or American Dad episodes. So I don't know. I do get why when Marvel comes on the scene, they just kind of eat DC's lunch. But that's because I think like the craft was more like sophisticated. Uh, I don't know, but I still feel like DC. I feel like the ideas were still kind of like grandiose and kind of epic and fun. Um, it kind of sucked to see like some of that stuff go away. Um, like I says, yeah, but let's remember that Silver Age nonsense came from comic code restrictions and not because it was an actual development. Um, I don't know if Zebra Man is what Bill Finger imagined Batman to be. Yeah, but Batman's also a weird character that, like, even before the comics code starts breathing down the comic book industry's neck, Batman's a character that, like, doesn't really have, like, a set identity, so you're just kind of seeing that character well up to the late 60s in stories that just kind of feel like editors are throwing darts at a wall of meat, going like, alright, what's gonna stick, guys? What's gonna stick? Are Batman stories gonna be cosmic adventures? Okay, I don't know. Is Batman gonna be murder mysteries? Let's try that again. Oh no, okay. Are they gonna be like fantasy epics? Oh no. Batman comics for a long time is just like, we're just throwing stuff against the wall. We're gonna see what sticks. Retroactively, I think some of that works because it reinforces a lot of really interesting ideas that you see from like the Morrison run onward. But I don't know. But to your point about Superman, Superman is a character that like definitely loses its way directly, like as a direct result of the Comics Code of Authority. But even, you know what, I can't even put all that on the Comics Code really. Because Superman stories, I think, kind of start to lose their way before the Comics Code. Superman comics go from being really interesting, like thrillers about Clark Kent trying to like uncover crimes and mysteries, to sort of being just like Archie comics where Lois is like pining after Superman and Clark is pining after Lois, and then we got a hold on it, the dinkies. And a lot of that was just because the big comic of the day after World War II ended and after the American economy like saw a massive boom. Like profits were up for everybody. Everyone could go to school. There was like this age of prosperity. There was no real angst amongst America, or I guess at the time like white America. So just, you know, Superman didn't have to fight corruption, because why would the government be corrupt? The government, they sent soldiers to Normandy, and we killed all the Nazis, and we killed all the Japanese, and now we're good. What is there to fight? I guess we'll have to fight aliens who want to take our women, those filthy foreign. I mean, the Gooble Globbles are going to marry Lois Lane. That's what Superman stories kind of became. They're like glorified like romance comics, largely because like Archie was one of the big books throughout the 50s. But yeah, I don't know. 1610 Man says the original Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, still exists. Yeah. It does still exist. But they made a new universe with Hickman doing his weird 6160 thing, which could potentially be interesting. I was talking with my buddy Jack Genocide about that. he loved the last issue of Ultimate Invasion. I kind of was like, eh. That's like the thing that kind of made. I guess I put it down after that, but I guess there's like 2 issues left that I got the first 3, so I might as well just keep going. But Ultimate Kang, eh. And Ultimate Kang is wearing like an Iron Man costume or an Iron Man armor. Alright, I guess. I don't know. I'll see where it goes, but in the meantime, a lot of it's just kind of coasting off the fact that I like Hickman. So I'm willing to give Hickman a lot more patience than I would anyone else. But I did the same thing with like the X-Men, and I don't really like Hickman's X-Men. But then again, I don't like the X-Men in general, so I guess that balances out. John Ty says, I love the art and the colors in the new Bridge Free book, and the character dynamics of the team is fun to read. Plus more Big Barda. You know what? That's a valid point. More Big Barda. I can't argue with that. The more Barda, the better. Supreme says Morrison's Batman run is good, but at this point, I wish Damian was not introduced in the main canon. I feel Bruce should have not had a biological son. I feel like Damian does kind of take away from the adopted kids. But I also feel like Damian just is in a weird space where he should not exist. If you go back to like Batman 666, the whole point is that Damian makes a deal with the devil on his 13th birthday, and then everything goes to hell because of that. Now Damian's like 16, so he has his 13th birthday. So we're like in the nightmare timeline that Grant Morrison predicted, even or prophesized, but the whole point of killing Damian off before that is that that's the sacrifice you have to make so you don't get the nightmare timeline. Now that Damian's back, it's like, what are we doing? Also, his character arc came to a close. Like, I don't know. Damian's not, he's just in a weird space where he's like Elektra. I like Elektra, but like, this character had an ending. Now she's just hanging out, and she just feels like, what are you doing here? Why do you exist? You're done. But I don't know. I think there's still some cool uses for Elektra. I like the way Zdarsky used Elektra in his run on Daredevil, which I haven't finished yet, but I'm getting there. Just comics are expensive, and I have no place to put new comics as I continue to buy comics. 16 Men says Jeff Loeb, Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, and Jeff Johns as Superman. Hey, remember Pre-Crisis Superman and Donnerverse? Yeah. Although I do think that Grant Morrison's run on Action Comics is a really interesting, sort of like meta view of Superman's history and mythology. So I like it a lot for that. Because if I was to write a Superman book, it would largely just be that. Although I wouldn't do the dimensional imp thing, Vindixtic. But that's also just what makes Morrison's run really kind of cool. But I don't know. The whole Superman, I think, suffered from Crisis the hardest because ever since John Byrne left the book, Superman's just been in a weird state of the characters just trying to fix themselves, or just DC's been trying to fix Superman ever since, bringing back some older stuff, but then bringing back the stuff that people kind of liked in terms of reinvention under John Byrne and Roger Stern and like George Perez and all those guys, and then like trying to find like a middle ground between the pre-crisis Superman and post-crisis Superman mythology. So I don't know. Superman's still in a weird spot. Like we always gotta talk about how Spider-Man's a character who's at war with themselves. I think Superman is definitely in the same camp. Arcus says, the man, almost, dude, I'm tired. Arcus says, generation of insecure writers about insecure legacy heroes being all insecure. Kind of the nail on the head there. Yeah. Wow. I almost killed myself. That like almost didn't go down. Jesus. Supreme says, on Damian becoming Robin, it does cement the idea that Robin is just a superhero internship these days. I disagree with that. And I disagree because Damian is Robin for a very specific reason. And I feel like at the end of the day, a lot of this just kind of comes down to the fact that I feel like Tim Drake should not have gone back to being Robin. I don't like that there are two Robins now. But like the thing with Robin is that Robin should not be. Robin is Batman's counterbalance. Batman does need a Robin. Damian became Robin because Dick became Batman. That's why that dynamic worked so well. Damian was the yin to Dick Grayson's yang. But then you bring Bruce Wayne back from the dead, and then you try to have Bruce be Batman and Damian be Robin, and like they have a like they're too much of the same, so they don't quite work together. So now that Batman and Robin dynamic is like off. And then you have the whole thing where like there's the We Are Robins, like the Robin gang, where like Duke Thomas was a Robin. And then Batman was training him to be something better, which just that never got followed up on. So I don't know. I don't necessarily see the like Robin as like an internship for Batman at this point. I see where you're coming from with it, but that's just one of the I just don't agree personally. 1610 Man says DCU versus all new all different Marvel. Legacy characters replacing everything at once and breaking more fan bases. Yeah. Which is kind of sad because some of those ideas, like in a vacuum, are really interesting. It's just I don't think they were focused at all. I like Identity Crisis because I grew up with it in the 2000s. Same here. Yeah. At some point, DC and Marvel should stop with creating new legacy heroes because whole legacy thing is getting thin at this point, and someday we'll have Batman fighting alongside his grandchildren. Yeah, I don't think the answer in that case is to get rid of legacy heroes. I think the answer is to get rid of some of the older characters and phase them out. I mean, you have to do it respectfully, but Like, yeah, have like, I feel like you can't have Batman go out on a higher bang than shooting Darkseid, who's like the eternal essence of evil, with a gun, and that's how Batman dies. I don't think you can. I don't think you can top that. But I really feel like, okay, this is how you phase out Batman. Bruce Wayne just dies, and then Dick Grayson takes over as the new Batman, and then that's just the status quo. That's how you properly bring in new characters, by phasing out older characters. Because legacy at the end of the day is just to like denote the passage of time. But that passage of time just doesn't feel, or like that attempt at like having a passage of time doesn't feel like earned, if you don't phase out the old. But the problem is we don't handle it in a way that's like tactful. It's all done like very in like these very Oedipal kind of, well, fuck the old guard, we're doing new stuff because we're the new kids. And it's just like, I don't like these new kids, so fuck the new stuff. So then the Marvel and DC just bring in the old stuff to like appease you. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that we should have like new legacies. I think that is like important to have. But you have to like, yeah, you have to pay like respect to the old guard and pass them off with respect. As opposed to like what is done in most cases, where they're just kind of like irreverently like dumped off in the sidelines, and it's like, this fucking sucks. But what's up, Devia? Supreme says, Tim, right before Identity Crisis, Tim's dad found out that his son was Robin, and the Bat Riders wanted to do a whole arc where Tim's dad dealt with his son risking his life as Robin. Killing him off wasted that. So, as someone who has not read the Robin book, I just can't speak to that, because I don't know much about Jack Drake as a character, frankly. But from like an outsider's perspective, I guess, or like a relative outsider's perspective, I do like the idea of Jack Drake being so concerned with his son's safety, and that his son's gonna like die out in like the field against some supervillain, and then he himself just gets whacked by by like Captain Boomerang of all people, who like at the time was a has-been. Which is funny to think that like Captain Boomerang was like the big villain at the time. Anyone else notice that? Like, Captain Boomerang was like in everything for a while. I feel like DC was really trying to like hammer up like Captain Boomerang is, no, he's in everything, because you know he fought Batman and Robin, and Jason Todd fought Captain Boomerang, and he's like, he has a big part in like Under the Red Hood. He's like one of the inciting incidents of Identity Crisis. I don't know. It's weird that Captain Boomerang, I feel like he was in, I feel like he was getting like a big push in the early 2000s. Kind of weird. But yeah, I do like the idea that like Jack Drake is so concerned with his son going out and fighting crime, and he's like, my son's gonna die out there, and then just this white Uncle Ruckus looking like has been washed up supervillain like breaks into his house and kills him. I think that's funny. That's like legitimately hilarious to me. John Ty says, I do like the stories of X-23, Kate Bishop, and Sam Wilson in the all new, all different era of Marvel. Those three characters being my favorite legacy characters in that era from Marvel. Okay, yeah, X-23 is also really cool. She's another one. And you can't, I guess, you can't quite do this. Given the death of Wolverine, or I guess actually, I think you can. I really like the idea of Logan dies and then Laura becomes the new Wolverine, and if you're gonna bring Logan back, you can bring him back, but he's not Wolverine anymore. He's just Logan. I think that's a really interesting idea that just no one did anything with. Because now Logan's back as Wolverine, and I feel like Logan wouldn't want that mantle anymore. I feel like he shows up and he's like, oh, Laura's the new Wolverine. Cool. Well, that name has a lot of like negative connotations with me, and I have a weird relationship with that mantle, so I'm fine just letting it go. Good on you, kid. I'm just Logan now. I don't know. I think that would have been like a way cooler way to go about that with the resurrection of Wolverine, or I guess with Logan. But Kate Bishop as the new Hawkeye. I just feel like Kate Bishop, that book that she was in, it was just too... The problem that I have with Hawkeye post Matt Fraction is that Matt Fraction was doing something with Hawkeye, like they have the whole like, outside of being an Avenger, this guy is kind of a disaster, but like he's still an Avenger. And Kate Bishop is still a badass superhero who took on the Hawkeye mantle. I think, I don't know. The thing I really kind of thought was interesting about that run was that it focused on the fact that these are people who, they are weapons, but they cannot be people. But you look at everything after that, and it's just, oh my god, I'm such a disaster. Look at me, I shot my arrow, but it's a boxing glove arrow. It's so silly and whimsical. Oh my god, I missed. And it's like, what is this? Like, the whole point is that, like the humor from Matt Fraction in David Aya's run came from the fact that they were the best in their field, but that came at the cost of being human beings. I'm not sure if you guys have ever watched the show Barry, but Barry is a lot like the Matt Fraction David Ayer run on Hawkeye. Same deal. Barry is like he's a killing machine. He is a Terminator. He's unstoppable. But ask him to like go ask out a girl, and he's like, I don't know, be people. I don't know. Arcus says Superman started to lose his way when Siegel and Schuster sold the rights to DC and stopped writing the character. Yep, there's that too. 1610 Man says, remember when Marvel and DC made a push for all ages comics in the early 2000s and early 2010s with typical superhero genre tropes, entirely self-contained storylines with no significance in arc-to-arc continuity? So when Marvel Comics just made DC Comics, yeah. But yeah, I grew up on a lot of those books. And some of them are pretty good, you know? I think Bendis did one, which was Avengers Assemble. That was like legitimately a really good Avengers book. I mean, it was literally just MCU synergy, but like it was really well handled, I feel. Mystical Green Beanie, quote, mutants bad? Yes. I swear to God, if I lived in the Marvel universe, I would be a mutant hating racist. I'm not even. It's not even a joke. Just if they like, I'm just being real with you guys. I would vote for Senator Kelly. I would have one of those like Senator Kelly was right hats with the T-shirt. I'd have a Sentinel action figure that I just carried around with me. It's like a 30-year-old man just like, yeah, no, I'm down with the Sentinels. String up these mutants, get rid of them. Dude, what's that thing that Nazi Captain America said in, I think it's called The Oath, where Hydra Cap is talking to the dead Tony Stark, and he's like, people are just tired of being called racist because they're afraid to send their child to a school where some other kid is just gonna get pushed into a locker, or a girl's gonna reject them, and then they're gonna freak out, and then the mutant power is gonna kick in, and then they bomb the school. Just entirely on accident, but like still, that's a legitimate fear. That's also where like kind of I feel like that's where the allegory for mutants as like a racial minority kind of breaks down, because racism exists in the real world for a lot of like complicated but largely economic reasons. Racism in the Marvel Universe is like a legitimate, or specifically mutant racism is like a legitimate like evolutionary concern. Like, no, if I'm walking down the street and like a dude just like trips and then his eyes just start strobing out like gamma radiation and just murders, it just gives everyone cancer in the vicinity. Yeah, man, that's I think it's okay to hate mutants there. I think it's kind of I think it's the rational train of thought to be afraid of mutants. Yeah. Arcus says Hickman already introduced Ultimate Kang in his OG Ultimates run. It was Ultimate Sue Storm from the future. What? Was that an Ultimate FF? Because I did not read that. He already introduced Ultimate Kang? Holy crap. Oh, she shows up in Ultimate Wolverine. Interesting. That's another book I didn't read. Ziggy Gamma read that a lot, but I just didn't read it. Crazy. Okay, she does show up in the Ultimate Comics Ultimates book. Although this isn't Hickman, this is Joshua Filkov, who I don't know who that is. Interesting. I don't. Well, I got some more reading to do, I guess. I do like some of the DCU era because of Grayson, which is my favorite DC run of all time. Interesting. I hear people who have read Grayson like it a lot. I just didn't give it a shot at the time because I was like, this is what are we doing with Dick Grayson? This is dumb. um, but okay, you say you like it a lot. The super heavy arc of Scott Snyder's Batman and Omega Man by Tom King. Omega Man's another one that's like really good. I feel like that book should be in print because that's like Tom King's first major superhero book, and it just got swept under the rug. Like, holy crap, that's. I heard it's really. I don't know. I read the beginning of it. I liked it, but I just never read the entire the whole thing. But I feel like that's a book that should be in print. That's a trade paperback that should be in print. On X-Men, I wonder why Morrison's run, Whedon's run, and Ultimate X-Men are your exceptions to your apathy towards the X-Men. It's more so that I just like those writers. I just like Grant Morrison. I like Jonathan Hickman. I like Mark Miller, and I like the Ultimate Universe. I like Joss Whedon. I like his writing style when he's working with Marvel characters a lot of the times. I don't know. It's just a thing where I like those writers before I actually like the X-Men themselves. And I think a lot of people have that. Like, there are people who I know don't like Superman, but they like All-Star Superman because they like Grant Morrison. There are people who I know who don't give a shit about the Avengers, but they read Hickman's Avengers because they love Jonathan Hickman. There are people who don't like the Fantastic Four, don't care about the Fantastic Four, but they read it just because Hickman wrote the Fantastic Four. That's how it is. Just sometimes you just like a writer or you like an artist, and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna follow what they do. They got a pitch for this thing I don't like. I'm there. Day one, I'm there. But yeah, that's it. Uh, 16 Tin Man. They kept Buddhist Hulk, so you never. Yeah. Tim Drake's New Identity. Drake, the Kid Detective. Jesus Christ. I'm still pulling for like. I really like Jaime as Blue Beetle. That said, I don't think Tim Drake as Blue Beetle would have been a bad idea. But I don't know. I feel like you just give either Tim Drake a completely new identity, or like Tim just drops being a superhero and goes to college. I really feel like that is Tim's. That's what Tim would do. He doesn't have like the thing that's driving him where it's like, no, I have to be a superhero. There's nothing else for me in this life. Now Tim would just kind of go like, I'm gonna live a normal life now. I feel like Tim should be able to do that, but we got to keep him as Robin for some reason. Oh crap. I scrolled. It's crazy to think that back in the day, the idea of Dick Grayson being a spy was really hated. Again, it was a lot of just like, because it was New 52, and New 52 was already like on. People were just kind of like, people had DC like on thin ice. If you did anything that was like kind of weird, people just kind of like said, "Fuck it, I hate this. This is stupid." Dude, at the time, there was a website dedicated to, I forgot what it was called, but it was like, It's been this many days since DC Comics did something stupid. But does anyone else remember that? Okay, I'll put it to you like this. If you think Snyder cult, like Zack Snyder DC fans are insufferable, you have no idea. You have no idea how bad post-crisis DC Comics fans were between 2011 and 2015. It got to a point where it felt like these guys just wanted DC Comics to go under because they weren't getting their way. Like it legitimately felt that way. There were a lot of cool books coming out around that time period that people just kind of ignored or were like, well, it's good, but like for New 52, but if it was the pre-crisis DC universe, which was good, where everything was great, well then it would be better. Like, dude, just it's just funny that, like, people kind of bitch about like Snyder Cut fans being not real DC fans, but like I feel like Snyder Cut fans are like the most accurate representation of DC fans, but like within the film medium, because they just every time you see anything from the Snyder Cult, it just takes me back to like the early 2010s when, again, there was that whole fucking website that was like, it's been this many days since DC Comics did something stupid. Even if it was like something legitimately kind of cool, they were like, this is stupid because it's not post-crisis DC. It's just it's just so funny. But yeah, no, it might be crazy to think now, but like back then it's not that crazy. True Omega says, to be fair, some of the modern problems with Robin is rooted in Dick Grayson becoming Nightwing. It's a great arc, the New Teen Titans, but it set a pattern for Robin being a temporary mantle. I would take it a step further and say that I think, well, first of all, Dick Grayson was Robin for 40 years. So it wasn't really like a temporary thing. And then Jason Todd became Robin, and he was Robin for like 4 years because he died. But the implication is that Jason Todd would have followed in the footsteps of Dick Grayson and probably became something better, because Bruce by that time had learned from his first child. It's that whole thing where like the firstborn is like kind of the beta testing child, and like the kids after that are the ones that actually get all the good shit. So I feel like Jason was kind of the setup for that, but then Jason dies. But then Tim Drake becomes Robin, and he's Robin for like, that motherfucker's still Robin. He's still Robin. So like, I don't know. I disagree with you in that the Robin mantle was a temporary thing. Because then, like, I mean, Stephanie Brown is Robin for a brief period of time, but she also dies. And then Tim Drake goes back to being Robin after Stephanie's death. So I don't know, man. I don't necessarily see the whole Robin being like an internship thing. Because it's only been like it's like 5 main Robins, you know, and all of them, like outside of Dick Grayson, all of them have died. Arca says, idea, Talia al Ghul has a father complex, and the reason is why she likes Batman so much is that she sees him as a young Ra's, and she wants to mold him into being the ideal version of her father. Yeah, I feel like that's been like the case though with Talia. I think that's just like that goes back to like Denny O'Neil. Talia's like, no, you're so much like my dad. You could just be my dad. I'm gonna fuck my dad. this is, I don't know. There's a lot to that with Talia. I feel like that's like the undercurrent of a lot of those like 70s and 80s Batman stories. Especially like Son of the Demon. There's a lot of that in Son of the Demon. Supreme says also on Tim, the reason why Dixon and O'Neill hated Jack Drake's death is that Tim is not being an orphan, but a well-adjusted kid with a living parent that made him an effective foil to the grittier Batman. And I get that. I legitimately do. But I still feel like there's a way to have that tragedy in Tim's life, because it happens so much later for Tim than it does like Bruce and Dick, and Jason, and also the context is different. The way in which he's orphaned is, I think his mom like gets a disease and dies, and Jack dies because, like, specifically because Tim is like a superhero. Like, I feel like if Tim wasn't a superhero, Jack wouldn't be in that position. I don't know. I have to reread Identity Crisis, but I vividly remember like Captain Boomerang goes after Jack Drake because Captain Boomerang knows about Batman or something like that. I don't know. It's been like 10 years since I read this book, but or like since I read it like all the way through. But there's also the case where just like Tim was like 16 or 17 when Jack died. Bruce and Dick were children. Tim was like a teenager on the way to becoming a college student, and on top of that, he was already a superhero. So I don't know, man. I feel like it's different. Like Tim is still different enough from Bruce and Dick, to where he's not just another one of like the orphan Robin gang or the orphan Bat gang. 1610 says the reason Captain Boomerang was getting a push in the 2000s is because WB and DC and David Goyer. Oh, the Ryan Reynolds Flash movie. Yep. All right, that explains it. That script is still pretty solid too. I feel like you can make that movie now. Like, I legitimately think I feel like you can make that movie now and it would work. In fact, I feel like that script should just be used as like the foundation for the Flash in the DCU. I mean, make some touch-ups here and there, but like I think it could still work. I miss the old Hawkeye costume too. Although I kind of like the Thunderbolts costume that he has right now. It's like a hybrid of like the Tactical Ultimates outfit and the like classic comic booky like Carney outfit that he wore in his debut. I think it's a cool like bridge of those two worlds. Between worlds. Josiah says, I don't know about you, but I felt like Matt Fraction's Hawkeye was also heavily influenced by The Professional. Oh, dude, I have to watch that. You know, you're probably right. It probably like actually is the more I think about it. Just from like the scenes I've seen out of context from this, yeah, it probably is. Um, oh, dude, it actually kind of reminds me of a point that I made earlier on Twitter, where I just see so many people like bitch and moan about how like the Todd Phillips Joker movie, it's not a real movie because it's just ripping off Taxi Driver, and I'm like, bro, you're weak. Your bloodline is weak, and you've clearly not read. You haven't read Marvel comics from like the 70s and 80s, because all the things that you like about Marvel comics and DC comics too, but like all the stuff you definitely like about Marvel comics is just Chris Claremont and like Frank Miller and Denny O'Neil and everyone else in the Marvel bullpen just ripping off whatever movie they watched that week in the theater. Like X-Men Days of Futures Past is literally just Terminator. Like the Brood are literally just the xenomorphs from Alien. Like there's just a lot of stuff in Marvel Comics where it's like it's just a movie, man. Like Luke Cage is just Dolomite. It's just bulletproof Dolomite. I would assume it's just Dolomite. I haven't seen Dolomite, but like it like Luke Cage is clearly like a blaxploitation character. Fucking Shang-Chi is literally just Bruce Lee. So like I don't know, man. The Todd Phillips Joker movie is just bad because it's not original. It's just ripping off these old movie tropes. It's just ripping off old movies from the genre. It's like, yeah, dude, that's comics, bro. Like, what are you talking about? That's the whole thing. All the stuff you like in comics is just a rip off of like movies that are popular in the culture. I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna go back and check out The Professional, but I could definitely see that being the case. Scream says it's weird that you like Identity Crisis yet hate Heroes in Crisis. I think Identity Crisis is just better written. I just think it's better written. This is my personal thing. I don't know. John Ty says, oh, okay. But not all the mutants are bad. I mean, yeah, not all the mutants are bad, but like, okay. It's that whole thing that like I have with Marvel just in general. And Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross's Marvels point this out too. The reason why we love Marvel characters is because we are watching them struggle. But take yourself out of the audience shoes and like put yourself in universe. Like just imagine yourself as like a dude who lives in the Marvel universe. All these characters that you're like endeared to, you're not really going to find all that endearing. If you're just a Joe on the street, you're probably not gonna like Spider-Man. You're probably gonna think he's a creepy weirdo, and you're just not. You're gonna be like, no, fuck you, you menace. You're probably not gonna like the X-Men. You're probably not gonna like, a bulk of the Avengers. You might like Captain America because he's like a living legend. But like outside of that, like probably gonna think the Avengers are like largely just a bunch of glory hogging like celebrities akin to the Seven from The Boys. Also doesn't help that like most of the Avengers are just reformed criminals. It's like half the Avengers roster. They're straight up former terrorists and supervillains. It's you just in universe you probably would not like these characters. That goes triple for the X-Men. But 1610 Man says Marvel Universe logic: mutants bad because born with powers, but mutates good because accidents gave them powers. Except I don't think a lot of people like the mutates either. If people don't like Spider-Man. People like the Fantastic Four, but because I don't know, you have a point there. But yeah, outside of that, like no one likes the other superheroes. People just don't like superheroes in the Marvel Universe. From what I've read of like 70s and 80s like Marvel, people generally don't like the superheroes there. They like Iron Man. Like Iron Man's kind of cool because he's like Tony Stark's bodyguard, and people like Tony Stark. But like outside of that, I mean, people like Wonder Man because he's a movie star. But I don't think anyone really likes the other superheroes that much. DCU was a train wreck. Yeah, if you're looking at like the continuity of it, but I think there's some cool stuff that came out during DCU. I like that Bryan Hitch Justice League book was really good. I also think the actually no, yeah. Okay, wait, no. The Garth Ennis did a Dastardly and Muttley book that was really fun. The stuff that worked for DCU was like the non-superhero stuff, which is kind of actually maybe what was the thing that killed DCU. The stuff that you weren't supposed to like care about was the stuff that was good, and the stuff that you cared about was all the stuff that was DC was just doing weird, interesting stuff with. I feel like I'm doing air quotes this whole video. Tim Drake is Blue Beetle. Yeah, I think that would have been a pretty interesting idea. DCU gave us Lois and Clark. Yeah, I was indifferent towards it. It just kind of felt like a bone that DC was throwing post-crisis DC fans so they could shut up and stop giving them death threats on Twitter. But I just don't care about Dad Superman. I just inherently don't care about Superman as a dad. I mean, like thematically, you can make that idea really interesting. I think Philip Johnson's doing a really interesting job with it right now, but on the whole, I just don't care about seeing Superman as a dad. I just don't. Personal preference. Original Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, Joshua Hale, Fialkov, Run of the Ultimates introduced Kang, who's the alternate reality version of Ultimate Universe, Earth 13074. Yeah, at that point, I just no, I noped out. I think at that point, the only Ultimate Universe title I was reading was Miles Morales. Too bad Kanye was never a Robin. Yeah, he was. His name's Jason Todd. I'm doing a whole video on this right now, but like, it's just so weird that Jason Todd has this reputation as being the bad Robin, when like you go back and you actually read those comics, and Jason's just he's just a sweetie pie. You know, he's just a good boy who wants to help Batman. He just wants to help fight bad guys and make sure old ladies cross the street. He just wants to make sure that like homeless people are fed. He wants to make sure that like you know hookers aren't getting beat up by the children of like political enemies of America with diplomatic immunity. Like Jason's a good kid. I don't know. I feel like the Under the Red Hood movie kind of broke Jason Todd as a character. But I mean I have a whole video about that coming out soon. It's like, in fact, it's probably gonna drop like this weekend. So I don't know. You guys will see that. Let me know what you think about it. But I don't know. It kind of sucks that Jason Todd just gets this reputation as the bad Robin when that's just not the case at all. If you go back and read those old comics, can I tell you? Post-crisis, 16 Cents is post-crisis DC fans when DC New 52 was coming out acted like post-crisis was perfect and had no continuity errors or soft reboots or retcons. Yeah. Supreme Omega says shit. On Steph, does she rub you the wrong way because her snarky, chatty, upbeat, plucky nature? I mean, you give Stargirl a pass for the same reasons. Her chatty nature is meant to give levity to Tim. I just remember not liking her at the time. I just felt like she didn't fit in the Bat books, and she was just kind of annoying to me. I'm sure we'll go back and reread them with like a sense of like sincerity. I'll see them differently because it's the difference between reading them as like an 8-year-old and a 28-year-old. Or not 28 yet, but like I'm getting there. Like next couple months I'll be 28. But like yeah, I'm sure I'll view these comics differently with adult eyes. Days of Future Past came before Terminator. Now what 80s movie am I thinking of? It might have been an Outer Limits thing then, which Terminator is apparently a ripoff of. But I don't know, the whole concept of like going no, excuse me. But the whole concept of like going back into the past to like fix the future, and then you come back and like things are just as fucked up, or they're different, but you don't have a place in that future. That's like a kind of old. That's an old sci-fi trope. Yeah, you're right. Terminator came out in like '84, I think. But still, there's Marvel Comics. They took a lot of the cool stuff from Marvel Comics is just like ripping off like movies that were coming out at the time, or someone just like reading a book and going like, this is a cool idea. So anyways, Kang the Conqueror, he's a time traveling tyrant. He has a ship called the Democles. But Dante says, having finished all of the Hickman's Marvel saga 2 months ago, so much of Scott Snyder's DC saga with Dark Knight's Metal, Justice League, and Death Metal is just a redux of what Hickman did. Damn. 16 Cents says DC didn't have a set plan for the cinematic universe, just director-driven standalone movies, but trying to be a shared universe commercial at the same time. Um, I think that's like ironically the way to go now. Don't have a shared universe. Just tell cool stories that are director driven with these characters. Which ironically I think works better for DC as opposed to like trying to tie everything to like tie everything together. Because just one of the unwritten truths about the DC universe, amongst like just the general comic reading audience, is that no one really cares about DC's continuity. They just care about like the one and done like self-contained graphic novel stories. That's why people like the Jeff Loeb Tim Sale trilogy of Batman. Like Long Halloween, Dark Victory. Yeah, it's just Long Halloween, Dark Victory. Or I guess we're gonna tie in year one of that too, but that's like just one self-contained story. People like also Superman because it's just one self-contained story. It's why Superman has like a million different origin stories, because they're all just self-contained stories that DC would later go like, actually no, that is canon, and it's like, shut up, you're actually making this confusing. Longbow Hunters and like the Mike Grohl run largely is pretty self-contained. Sandman is like set in the DC universe, but it's pretty self-contained. Justice by Jim Kruger. Jim Kruger? Yeah, Jim Kruger and Alex Ross, self-contained. Kingdom Come, self-contained. Like, compared to Marvel, all of DC's big stories are just like these self-contained graphic novels. Like Dark Phoenix Saga is like a big epic that takes place in the X-Men line. Dark Knight Returns is just a 4-issue miniseries about Batman being an old man. Or you check out like the whole thing where Scarlet Witch discovers that, or Scarlet Witch doesn't discover, but like everyone finds out that, the audience finds out that Magneto is Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's father. That is an arc that takes place within the Avengers comic book. But like, what's the most iconic thing going for like Mr. Miracle? It's that 12-issue maxi series by Mr. Ads and Tom King, and that takes place largely out of continuity. So just, I don't know. DC's whole thing is like, DC's bread and butter is out of continuity stories, and I think the film should reflect that. I think the films that have largely worked are the ones that don't feel like they're tied to a continuity. They just kind of like stand alone, and they just work on their own. The Dark Knight trilogy works because it just is standalone. I had a talk with my my coworkers earlier today, and they were talking about how like they like the older DC movies, and I was like, oh yeah, you're probably thinking about like the like the Dark Knight and all that, and they were like, yeah, my coworker, I'm not gonna dox him, but he was like, yeah, Man of Steel was cool because it was just a one and done movie. It just felt like a story, and it just kind of ends. And more DC movies should be like that. And I was like, oh yeah. First of all, crazy. Normal people like Man of Steel. Interesting. But yeah, I mean, he's right. Like, just these movies should just be one and done, like experimental, like genre films, and then just move on. Again, I feel like the movies should do that largely, because that is just DC's DNA. Self-contained, epic stories. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We're gonna get a whole cinematic universe. I'm gonna see how that pans out. 1610 says, Mystical Green Beanie quote, in universe you wouldn't like these characters. Me, you mean Marvel Ruins by Warren Ellis? That too. But also just Marvels by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross. See, Ruins is just like, what the fuck? That's just like Warren Ellis's id coming out to play. John Ty says, in thinking of Scott Snyder's Dark Knight's Metal, Justice League, and Death Metal as a redux of Hickman's work is really cool in my opinion. Oh, okay, cool. It's like the DC version of Hickman's everything. Okay. Uh, 1610 Man says DC Rebirth lied about literally bringing back post-crisis DC for the post-crisis fans. Yeah, but it brought back enough to where post-crisis fans just kind of shut up and were like, oh, I'm pacified. It was kind of hollow, but that's looking back at it with like the benefit of hindsight. But at the time, people were like really into it. Something that I also think helped DC was just that Marvel was kind of at one of their all-time lows at that point, or like modern all-time lows. The comics were not doing well at that point, but I think that really helped DC, in the way that like New 52 really helped Marvel, like skyrocket in terms of sales. 1610 says, pre-crisis, Earth 1 Robin was just a good kid, but post-crisis, New Earth Jason Todd was a bad kid. Fans and casuals aren't doing research, and they're just enjoying revisionist history with adaptations. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but it's just, I don't know. You think Jason got bad rep? In New 52, Superman questioned himself being a bully because he made Nazis cry by laughing at him. Story of a Greg Pack. Although he didn't, I don't know. I hear the way you're framing it. The way Greg Pak wrote it, he was just kind of like, was it petty? Yes, but also like, fuck them, they're Nazis. John Ty. Oh, I do love Stephanie Brown as Batgirl. Oh, she's your favorite Batgirl? Oh, that's pretty cool. I did like that Brian Q. Miller Batgirl series. I kind of wish it kept going. But again, New 52 happened. Supreme Omega says, ironically, Jason as Robin is a lot more sympathetic than Jason as Red Hood. My problem with Red Hood is that I feel like Bruce is too forgiving. He gives Huntress a hard time, yet he's okay with Jason. Well, I mean, he gives Huntress a hard time, but he also invited her on the Justice League. I feel like he gives Jason more of a hard time just because it's the difference between your kid versus someone else's kid. Bruce is very kind of like... Bruce is hurt by what Jason turned into. Because he feels like this good kid got corrupted by the Joker because he didn't do enough. But yeah, that's like the schism between Bruce and Jason. I don't think that's like executed very well in a lot of cases, but That is the general idea. Uh, Argus says it's weird, but many writers and readers consider Golden Age Superman to be a bully. That's just because they have Christopher Reeve Superman on the brain. Like, because Christopher Reeve is like the default Superman in pop culture, and he's like a very passive, very impartial kind of like, you know, he's a star man. You know, he's Jesus. He just kind of stands around and smiles and like, ha ha. He gives the you know, he's a Boy Scout. He's cheesy. He's smiling. Superman doesn't actually hurt anybody or get mad. He smiles. He's nice. He's just generally kind of nice. That's Superman's character. He's just nice. I feel like because that is like the pop culture mindset surrounding Superman. You look at something like Golden Age Superman, where he is that like pulp hero, like with a real go get 'em type attitude, who's very eager to like find a wife beater and just push his head through a wall, or you know, pick up a Nazi and just throw him across a river. They're like, oh my god, this Superman's so violent and angry. He's so mean because he's not standing around doing the smile with the Starman theme song in the background. That's not a dig at the whole like Starman, Superman guy. That was a really good video. I'm glad he's like going out there and like helping people. This is really cool. Even if it is like a total sham, and it's all just like it's fake. Because I'm just cynical like that. I don't know. The world's broken me. But even if that is fake, the image is nice and it's uplifting. It gives it's chicken soup for the heart. But yeah, a lot of people kind of see Superman as just like this impartial kind of like godlike figure who just stands around and smiles, as opposed to like actually getting his hands dirty and doing stuff. People look at Golden Age Superman as like a bully. Marvel and DC, everything's canon because more content. I mean, with DC it doesn't make sense. With Marvel it makes perfect sense because Marvel's supposed to be like a soap opera, so like in theory the Spider-Man that you're reading about from 1965 is the same Spider-Man from now. Whereas that's not really the case with DC. Like, barring Batman and Green Lantern, all these characters are kind of just like different people. Actually, okay, I did a whole thing. I almost made this video, and I just kind of, I didn't like how any of the tapes were coming out, but I did a reading order list for all of Batman. Well, not all of Batman, but like most of Batman. Like how to read all of Batman from like 1939 to now, and just read the important bits without the filler, if you will. And like that, I think that works. Is like Batman is like the same guy from 1939 in theory is the guy you're reading about now. So like, alright, I'm gonna bother you guys with this because I'm just not gonna make this video. But for anyone who does want to read all of Batman, and it's fitting that my nose is starting to run, so I look like a proper nerd here. There we go. Jesus Christ, this is off to a great start already. But alright, if you're gonna read all of Batman, I should just take my Zyrtec, but I'm not going to, because fuck it. We're on a roll. Start off with Golden Age Batman, like the complete collections that DC did, like Batman of the Golden Age Volume 1 through 5. You can read the other ones, like, I mean, you can read, so you only really need Volume 1 and 2. I recommend reading up through Volume 5, because that's when you get, like, Two-Face, and that's when you get, I think the Hugo Strange stuff kind of comes to a conclusion in, like, Volume 3 or something like that. Um, you also see like the Joker kind of like come back and develop as a character, uh, because I think like he's in the first collection, then he just kind of like, I don't think he comes back until like the end of the second one. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Just for like completionist sake, if you're gonna read all of Batman, uh, just read the first five like Golden Age collections, um, and then from there you would read Batman in the 50s and Batman in the 60s and Batman in the 70s. Uh, those are three of the four Batman this decade graphic novels. The Batman in the 50s one I think is like the best of the Batman those decade or Batman in this decade collections, because it has all the important stuff and it has just like other fun miscellaneous stuff that I also think is just kind of important for you to have in wrapping your brain around what 50s Batman comics were like. Actually, this collection right here. Yeah, this has the first Kathy Kane Batwoman. This has the whole arc where Batman meets the Club of Heroes, which is like a big part of Morrison's run on Batman. This has the whole thing where Batman wears like that ridiculous that rainbow outfit, and I forget what the context of that is, but that's in this collection. So you read Batman in the 50s, then you read Batman in the 60s. This is also a really good one, and that one's really interesting because it like you see the transition from Batman in his Silver Age to more so what Batman would be from the 70s up through like the 90s. And that's a pretty cool collection. It has like the first appearance of Barbara Gordon as the second Batgirl. It has the first appearance of Poison Ivy in it, so that's really cool. My only problem is that like it ends on one bullet too many, which is unfortunately important because that is the story where Dick Grayson goes off to college. The problem is like the murder mystery outside of that is just kind of crappy. But from there, check out Batman in the 70s. That's a really good graphic novel collection. I kind of disagree with the way that is collected, but I feel like that's also the case with Batman in the 80s. But to go along with the Batman in the 70s collection, I would also check out Strange Apparitions, because that's a really important Batman story where I think Steve Englehart brings back Deadshot, and he gives Deadshot like the iconic Deadshot visualization and origin, and he also brings back Hugo Strange in a really interesting way. So yeah, that's what I would check out for Batman in the 70s, and then you read the Batman in the 80s graphic novel collection. This one I think is terrible, but it gives you like an overall kind of vibe of what Batman in the 80s is kind of like. Although I think it's just that whole thing is just collected wrong. I would have collected that differently, but it's still pretty cool. And you have like some cool stories in there, like the whole Fear for Sale thing. That's like the Scarecrow Jason Todd arc, or just a one shot. And you also have like the New Titans issue 55. That's where Dick Grayson finds out that Jason dies. But yeah, from there I would check out The Killing Joke. Killing Joke. Don't have to explain that one. And then from there, all right. Now I'm getting real Charlie from It's Sunny. From there I would check out Crisis on Infinite Earths, because that establishes like the DC universe rebooted, so everything's different now. And then from there, I would read in this order: Batman Year One, then Batman Long Halloween, then Batman Dark Victory, then Robin year 1, and then Batgirl year 1. Because that like establishes within the new continuity like the first like 6 or 7ish years of what Batman was like in Gotham. This is like the new continuity for like the new universe Batman. There's some stuff like in between that is also like I guess some people would consider necessary reading, like Batman and the Monster Men, and Matt Wagner does like a redux of the Mad Monk story, but like I don't consider that like essential. It's just like supplementary reading. I think they're really good, but like it's not like necessary. And then after that, you would check out Death in the Family. That's where Jason Todd dies, and also like in all the collections of Death in the Family, they also print A Lonely Place of Dying, and that's like when Tim Drake is introduced. So that's a good thing to check out. Then from there, you read the Demon Trilogy, which is just collected as Son of the Demon. Or I guess no, it's collected as no, it's titled Birth of the Demon. My bad. But yeah, after Birth of the Demon, you read Nightfall, and then after Nightfall, you read Tower of Babel, which has just been collected as its own trade in the JLA books. Then after Tower of Babel, you check out No Man's Land, and then after No Man's Land, you read what else do I have on here? Okay, Murder Fugitive, and then you read Identity Crisis, and then after Identity Crisis, you read War Games, which I really like personally. I think War Games are pretty cool and interesting. And it sets up Under the Red Hood really well. Wait, no, I missed a book. Did I miss a book? I don't think I missed a book, did I? I did. I missed Hush. Where did I put Hush in this list? Okay. Murder Fugitive. Then Hush. Okay. Then Identity Crisis. Then War Games. Then Under the Red Hood. And then you read OMAC Project. And then after you read OMAC Project, you read Infinite Crisis. And then after Infinite Crisis, you read Grant Morrison's run on Batman. Then after you read Grant Morrison's run on Batman, I say that you should read Black Mirror. Although I list Black Mirror as optional. I think just because it's a cool story, but like it's not necessary. And then I say you read Flashpoint, because all the Tom King Batman stuff is like really contingent on Flashpoint. And then you read after Flashpoint, Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder's run on Batman. And then you read Tom King's run on Batman. And then you read James Tynion IV's run on Batman. And then you just are caught up. You just check out Chip Zdarsky's run and the Ram V run on Detective Comics. But, yep, that was my schizo list for how to read all of Batman. I don't know why I thought to make that list. But, yep, that's how I would read all of Batman if I ever wanted to read all of Batman in one sitting. Superman Omega says, on the Avengers, Wolverine and Spider-Man should have never been members. I'm with you on that. I agree with that. Let's see. Spider-Man One More Day, Spider-Man Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah, that character's just been broken ever since. Yeah, Death Metal is a pretty good ending for the New 52. Mr. Green Meanie, you want to read all of Batman? Historians. How about a list of the entire DC universe? Yeah, I don't know. I went like full Charlie. You never go full Charlie, but that's my list for how to read all of Batman. Um, has anyone read post Clone Saga Spider-Man era from the mid to late 90s? That stuff's just not very well collected, I feel. Um, like like I think the trade called like one little like little like small breaks or something like that, which has like some of the Mackie stuff in it, but like it's not a lot of Spider-Man material in that era that's just been properly collected. um Disagreeing with the way it's collected, just by the single issues, bro. Yeah. um I'm gonna make my own Batman in the 80s collection with blackjack and hookers. Um, I've also read all of Spider-Man 2099. God damn it, I gotta get on your level. I will one day. I just really want Marvel to print in an epic collection the 2099 run. And for the love of God, I don't know why they didn't do that for Across the Spider-Verse. I feel like, okay, if you're Marvel and you're doing the whole like synergistic thing where you're releasing books alongside your movies, you'd think that you would print Spider-Man 2099, like the original Spider-Man 2099, in an epic collection alongside the movie where Spider-Man 2099 is gonna be like one of the major characters and antagonists in it. I don't get Marvel sometimes, dog. I just don't. I don't get it. Like, what do they? What, dude. But yeah, I will one day read all of Spider-Man 2099. I will do that one day. I will join you in the sun. Arcus says 50s Dick Grayson in a nutshell. Batman dates Batwoman and doesn't pay attention to me anymore. Now I feel like Robin the boy cuckold. Yes. Yes, you are. Because contrary to what community college teenage girls who write papers on comic books are going to say, Bruce Wayne actually can't put his penis inside you, Dick Grayson. So, no. That was oddly, if that came off as like oddly specific, that's because I worked at a comic book store and there was a girl who came in and had like a whole like heated debate about how Batman's all about gayness and Bruce Wayne's actually like molesting this like underage boy, and I was like, okay, so just thank you, Frederick Wortham. I see that you've reincarnated as a teenage girl here, and that's fine. I guess. DC should do epic collections. They really should. They really should. I think DC should capitalize on some of that. I don't know. On the one hand, I think they should. On the other hand, I feel like the DC universe continuity is like more of a chaotic clusterfuck than Marvel's. So like trying to collect everything in terms of like what happens in the continuity is that's just the lost cause. Yeah, Spider-Man 2099 is getting an omnibus. I just don't like reading in the omnibus format. That's just the thing I don't like doing. Supreme says, my problem with war games is that everyone's out of character. Bruce is out of character, Steph is out of character, Dr. Leslie Tompkins is out of character, Oracle's out of character. Yes, but I like it for, I don't know. This is just me being a Grant Morrison fanboy, but I like how retroactively, Grant Morrison says that everyone is out of character because they're responding to Bruce being out of character, and Bruce is out of character because he's just suffering a midlife crisis. I don't know. I think it works. Well, you can't argue that Batman isn't grooming young boys. On that note, how to fix continuity errors, the internet age of database wikis. True, very true. But yo, thanks for showing up, guys. Always glad to be here. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you next week. Yeah. I got a new video coming down the pipeline. It's a Jason Dive video. Hopefully you guys like it. And then from there, I'm going to try to get started on some other vidges for y'alls. Until then, see you later, guys.